Hello and welcome to the Recovering Dad podcast. I am your host, Marcus Ashcraft. Today is a solo podcast. Kind of just want to come in and talk about things going on, kind of some things that I've kind of thought about over the past several weeks or whatnot, and just feel like discussing, weighing in on, and then maybe hearing back from some people and finding out what you guys think about the subject matter that I talk about. If there's any suggestions about the subject matter that we cover, feel free to comment or send a message. But on this podcast, I kind of want to open up a communication, open up a two-way. That's what communication is, what conversation is. Some type of two-way dialogue where two addicts recovering addicts can get together and talk about a situation or an addict and a non-addict, or a police officer and an addict. I kind of want to open up this dialogue, like I said, to kind of get an insight on what we're going through as addicts, what we go through every day. Not only do we have like the regular struggles of a human being, we also have this monkey on our back. Always saying, hey, it's okay. It's been years since you've tried it. I'm sure it'll be okay. It won't happen like last time. It's kind of cool to, I kind of want to hear from people and kind of hear their perspective on it and what they go through every day. And because I know what I go through. And I'm just a normal guy. I have 7 years I'm in recovery from heroin, recovering heroin addict. And, I kind of see life now in a different way than the first couple of years of being sober. The first couple of years of being sober was rough. You had to basically just take a job, any job, simply because of your background, living situation, vehicle situation, things like that. First couple of years in sobriety, I didn't have a license, I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car. Barely had clothes. Thank God my mom and dad let me stay, go back home and stay with them. I had saved up a lot of money on rehab, a couple grand, so I could come back home and, fight a court case and all this stuff, try to get my kid back and whatnot. And, but it was hard. It's not easy, like getting sober, like that's just a small part of like the whole picture. I always wanted to put the cart before the horse and be like, oh, I'm going to get sober, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then, all my dreams are going to come true. But, here it is 7 years later, and, I'm still chasing my dreams. I'm still putting goals out there. I'm still, thinking, what can I do? How can I use my situation or my past as a way to express myself or express me to other people who also relate. I don't want to look at my past as a negative, because for so long, that's all you heard was, well, you're this, or you're that, or you did this, you stole this, or you got high here, or you did that. And it gets old, I paid for my crime. Time over, I paid for my crime. I don't feel like, as addicts, I don't feel we should have to live in fear of whether or not someone's going to find out about what we used to do, because it's not what we do currently. As addicts, you come home from rehab or jail or wherever, and you've been gone from a place for a while, and you've been clean, whether you did it through a program in jail like SAP, or whether you did it through 12-step meetings, whether you did smart recovery, whether you did it cold turkey, or even medication. However you did it, it doesn't matter. But once you get back into life on life, you see that people still treat you as if you were that guy. But in all honesty, it's like, well, why wouldn't they? I was just a piece of garbage 90 days ago. It's not, I mean, you gain 15 pounds and your face fills out and you look good. You feel good. The fog is gone. And you kind of get this like sense of entitlement almost when you're newly sober. I seen it all the time. I mean, I even probably had it. It was like I'd get back home or I'd get back in a situation and be like, look at me, I'm sober." And people are like, "Yeah, the majority of the world functions in a state of sobriety or coping with life without using or putting something in them." And I wanted kudos for that, and on one hand, I went through the depths of hell and came out. So I feel like a pat on my back is cool, but in a way, I put myself in those situations to get myself put into jail, get myself put into rehab, all of those things. I put myself there. But the addiction I felt most of my life, I feel it was there. I did not put a drug in me or a drink or none of that in me, but I always felt different. I always felt, I don't know, less than. I always felt some type of imbalance. Now I see that. Oh yeah, that's my addiction. I've got obsessive compulsive quirks. I've got little things, little ticks and whatnot, which made me feel weird. I talk to myself constantly. Always thinking about things, just super obsessive compulsive. I'm a doomsday guy. I'm always waiting for that other shoe to drop. So there's a lot of anxiety, I guess, but using made me feel normal. And I know a lot of people like us say this, a lot of addicts, a lot of alcoholics say that. Once I put a drink or drug in me, that's when I felt normal. I felt, that I have arrived moment, that they use in programs. I felt that. And I can remember I was at the hospital. I had a four-wheeler landed on me, and I broke my collarbone, punctured a lung, some ribs, concussion, all this stuff. I was in the hospital for like 4 days, but I could remember the feeling of the morphine. And, I was like 12, 13, 14. I was like a freshman in high school, I think, or something. So, excuse me. But I remember pushing the button, and it's like, because I knew that feeling, that euphoric feeling you got when you push that button, and then moments later, there's just warm, fuzzy, this hug wraps your body. And I just thought that was awesome. And of course, I didn't recognize it then. Nobody did. This was like 2001, 2002, something like that. So it wasn't really big in people's minds. And, plus I was a kid, everybody, so, fast forward, probably 10 years from there, I'm a full-blown addict. I had back issues, so I was getting prescription medication. Got addicted, and then the doctor cuts me off. Can't find no drugs, so then you resort to other illicit things like heroin, meth, all that stuff. But anyway, it all started from a doctor giving it to me. It all started because I had back pain and back issues, and some of the doctors that I did go to did stress the issue of, hey, look, we don't want you to get something really strong because of, what are you going to do when you're 30? What are you going to do when you're 40? With all this pain and these issues. But there were also doctors but all they were pushing was medication. I feel like they weren't giving you any other type of alternatives. Hey, do these stretches. Hey, go see a chiropractor. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. But we didn't know. I mean, I think maybe they had a clue, but I don't think they really knew what they were getting themselves into, for the future. I know so many people who have died from drug overdose. And it's crazy. It's hit super close to home. Like my cousin, my favorite person in the entire world, overdosed and died on heroin. My mother, I mean, I can't speak for her, but I can say that alcohol killed her. Alcohol destroyed her life. Alcohol, I watched alcohol deteriorate my mother, and my uncle, my family. So many members of my family are addicts. I mean, I know I can't speak for them, but I can say the isms. I recognize all the isms that they have and that I have, and yeah. So, oh, and another thing too. So, like coming from a place where I come from a rural place in Kentucky, a place where I mean we're 30 minutes south of Cincinnati, 30 minutes north of Lexington. So it's kind of okay, but it's a rural area. There's not a lot to do. Just like a lot of Kentucky, I'm sure and a lot of other states that experience this. But I know for us, because we're located in such a perfect spot from the cities, the drug problem ravaged where I grew up. So you got a poor town, doesn't have a lot going on for entertainment wise. Unless you play sports, you really didn't really have much to do growing up. So, which I mean, that's no excuse, but being from where I'm from, where we're from, that's like, it's almost like you have to claw a little extra to get out. And then, the decisions you make, if you choose to do drugs, if you choose to be a criminal, that obviously makes it way harder than if you were to just make the right decisions from the jump. But I find that in small towns that you find in places like Kentucky, it's really hard to get out. And I know that in general, it's hard to get out and make some type of name for yourself or be successful. But when you're born into it in a way, as in like you live on a gravel road or you live way back somewhere and the majority of your family, uses or their friends or, it's hard to get out of that when there's not a lot of high paying jobs in the place that you live and you have to travel a significant amount of time to find a job. That's hard. That's difficult. That puts a lot of stress and struggle on people. So when there's not much to do, there's not a lot of high paying jobs in your area. You're down and out. So what do? You're going to get high. You're going to drink, so obviously the problem, and then being so close to these bigger cities makes it worse because that's where, all the drugs are at, in these bigger cities. So that's where people go and come back to these small towns and it just ravages. I mean, I could rattle off dozens of names of personal friends that have died from this disease, and it is a disease, whether people want to say it or not. It is, because before you drank or used, you felt some type of way, whether it was naturally or whether someone made you feel that type of way. But you had this imbalance, or you had this feeling that you have, and I know people. All right, so my brother, complete adverse effect when it comes to opiates. He throws up, he gets sick, he hates them. You know what I mean? He had a physical reaction to them. And I know people that, when you do them, you just feel like this hole in your body was filled. You know what I mean? So, and then also when you get sober, a lot of doctors will say, oh my gosh, you have a dual diagnosis. Did you know that you had, you were bipolar as well as, you being an addict? Did you know you had this chemical imbalance? Did you know you had personality disorder? Did you know you had all of these other little ailments or whatever that affected the way you processed information, So therefore, it was like, well, yeah, these drugs release dopamine, they release serotonin, they release all these things that you should have been getting that your body wasn't producing, or your body was underproducing, or whatever it may be, and then you end up using. But either way, that's I know that's some of it's a choice, whatever. Either way, some people are more drawn to be an addict than others. And it's not always like environmental. It's not all, some of it's probably could be hereditary, some of it could be chemical. We don't entirely know. The whole thing is that anyone and everyone could be susceptible to becoming an addict. And that's what makes addiction so scary and so serious. And what's also crazy, it's a disorder, disease that the majority of the population doesn't want to tell you that you have a problem. Oh, why don't you just quit getting high? Why don't you just stop using drugs? You know what I mean? Quit for your family. Quit for your. It's not that quite. It's not quite that simple. Once you've been using for so long, they call it a vicious cycle because you're hating yourself, but you're waking up completely miserable and shitting yourself and puking and crying. But the only thing your brain can tell you is, let's go get high. Let's go get high. That's the only thing in your brain. The only thing your body is telling you at that moment is, I gotta use. You know what'll make me feel better? Blah, 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 blah. So as many times as you sit there and you're like, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm done, this is it, your body is screaming and your brain is screaming at you saying, do it, and you can only fight it for so long, and that's why getting sober, I mean, it's really a group effort. You need someone on your side. You need somebody in your corner that says, hey, look, you are strong enough. You can do this, without enabling them. You know what I mean? So it's like a teeter-totter little balance thing. But because we're always going to be like, especially if we're detoxing, we're always going to be like, one more. Let me get one more and then I'll quit. Stuff like that. And, but if you don't know, if you've never been in that position yourself, if you've never been where your body, 100% of your body feels as if it's on pins and needles, like your skin is jumping off of your body, like you have goosebumps that are constantly crawling up your body. It's like a snake inside your skin. You know what I mean? It's like, and the only remedy is to go do the thing that's making you feel this way. So it's just a never-ending cycle. And the only way to get out of that is, you die. Something intervenes. The universe intervenes and says, hey, we've got different plans for you. It's time for you to stop. It's time, so you get arrested, or you get put in jail, you overdose, you end up in the hospital. A friend cries to you and begs you to quit, and then you give it a chance, or you go to a meeting, or whatever changes your mind to finally stop it. It takes a lot for someone to quit once you've been using for so long. And I know that's hard for like families and friends to watch. But you just have to you just have to be there at a distance. And when they say, hey, I think I need help, then that's when you swoop in and say, hey, I got you. I can help you out. Or you go find someone who can. But until then, you just have to be patient and vigilant, but you also can't enable. It's a hard tightrope. I feel so bad for my parents. When I was using, I mean, just being so manipulative and, I don't know, just thinking I had it together when I totally didn't. And look, I had to get in trouble. I had to go to jail before, I decided that I needed to quit, that my life was, I got to a point where I had been to jail, I think my third or fourth time, And it got to where I was like, you know what, this isn't bad. You know, I could do this. I this isn't. I could get used to this. You know, and at that moment, that's when I realized that something had to change. Once I got comfortable being in jail, once I got comfortable sleeping next to 12 dudes, when you're wearing the same jumpsuit for weeks, you know, without washing it, and just you never see the sunshine. Everybody's like a weird, like opaque, maybe even transparency. Like they're transparent. Like it's insane. Like just concrete everywhere. And you get to maybe stare at the sunshine for an hour a day, and that's it. They let you go. Um, I was getting comfortable in those situations, and that's when I was like, you know, this is not where I saw myself going. And that compounded by other things, I was like, you know, let's go to treatment. You know, let's figure it out. And you know, and I got it. You know, and it took a long, it's a long road, but it was worth it, man. 100% worth it. I'm to this day, um, saved my life. You know, getting arrested, getting in trouble, and being introduced to recovery. I was introduced to 12-step program. I know a lot of people find recovery in many other ways, different ways, but I initially got sober through 12-step and did 18 months in rehab, came home, did the whole thing, and then I realized that you know, I took parts of the program and I use them still today, as in, you know, think about my character defects and, you know, the shortcomings and work on those. Um, Help others in need. You know, you see another addict or you see another person struggling, you do what you can to help them without enabling them. I'm still spiritual. You know, I take these things from the program and I use them in my everyday life, but um, I use marijuana as maintenance, I guess you could call it, but it's not like I'm not California sober. It's not like that whole thing. It's just a simple fact of like marijuana helps me sleep, and marijuana was never. I mean, marijuana can be an issue if you're going if it gets in the way of your everyday life, of your everyday, you know, taking care of your kids, getting a job, things like that. If doing something, if anything, gets in the way of your everyday life, it's a problem. You need to change it. So I use marijuana to help with anxiety. I use marijuana to help me sleep. Those are the things that I use it for. You know, it's not an issue for me, but I know for some people it is. I know some people can't do anything. And like I said, I'm 7 years clean and sober from opiates. I did 3 years total sobriety, like 12 step, you know, I guess they would say, you know. And then the last 4 years has been with marijuana. And I haven't wanted to use, I haven't wanted to do things. I just think for me, and I know this isn't for everybody, but I can only speak for myself, is that I don't really think about getting high anymore. I don't think about just tearing it all down and letting it all go. I don't think about that anymore. I have a beautiful place. I have two beautiful kids and a fiance, and we have a life together, and we're building something. Nothing in my brain makes me say, hey, maybe we should just tear it all down. You know, maybe I can just get high and get away with it. You know, nothing like that ever crosses my mind. I'm happy today. I'm not exactly where I want to be, but who is? As long as you're doing better today than you were yesterday, or you're working on yourself today, and you're striving for something, and you have small goals, and you see yourself somewhere better in the future, and you're working towards that, then what's it matter? You know? I'm raising a beautiful family. I have a beautiful life, and it's only getting better. And if whatever you need to make that happen, That's your business. And I don't think anybody can tell you what's right or wrong. If it works for you, it works for you. Some people do abstinence. Some people do 12-step. Some people do SMART. Some people do medicated assistant treatment. Some people do marijuana. Some people do nothing. I mean, no matter how you got here, all that matters is that you're here. Thousands and thousands of people are not here because I don't know. Thousands of people are not here to tell their story. Thousands of people are, I mean, they're not here to tell you, you know, you got that chance, you got that moment. A lot of people had to die so we could be here. I know for me, I know some people had to die so I could be here, for a fact. My cousin, my mom, some of my friends. But it didn't keep me sober. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to end up like that. And those things played a role. And that's why we keep fighting. That's why I think, I know for me, so for me, the reason why I want to do this is because I want to be able to tell my story because they didn't get to. And if I don't use my recovery or the things that I've learned over my life with being an addict, with being in recovery, with sobriety, with all of these different things, with parenting in recovery, with all of these things. If I don't use that in a positive light, then what am I doing? You know, why did these people die? If you're not gonna get off your butt and live life. And I really think that's what it's about, is that you have to stand for something. Because if not, why these other people just died for nothing. And so I really just want to open a discussion between everybody, addicts, non-addicts, people in recovery, people not in recovery, people who are currently using, who are struggling. And if you are struggling, please reach out and, you know, get you into rehab or just talk or just listen. A lot of times people just want you to listen, man. A lot of people who confide in you as a friend and they start talking and then all of a sudden you start coming back at them like, blah, 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 you need to do this, you need to quit, blah, 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 this and that. Get help, you know, that they hear that. People hear that all the time. And you doing it on top of it doesn't make it any better because the majority of people who are using already hate themselves. You know what I mean? Like, they already know. Do you think they expected when they woke up that morning that that's where they expected themselves to be? You know, stuck in a loop for 5 years, stuck in a loop for 7 years. Do you think that's what these people want? And it's not as simple as just do it. You know, it is, but it isn't. You know, there's a lot of other factors that play in. But all I'm saying is to be compassionate. Try to be empathetic. And if you can't, just be sympathetic, man. That could be your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your uncle, your cousin, whatever, man. That could be somebody you know. And not only that, it's a person. And that's the thing too, is like, so a lot of people are against like carrying Narcan or knowing about Narcan or having to use Narcan, or they're upset or up in arms because Narcan is free. It's a life, man. Like, so you're telling me if I came up to you and said, hey, would you like to carry some Narcan and blah, 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 well, I don't support junkies, bah, fuck them all. No. So the thing is that if you could have something on your possession that when you saw a friend in need or someone in need dying on the ground, lifeless, you could pull something out of your car or your pocket that would save their life. Point blank, period. Would you do it? If you had the opportunity to save someone's life, would you do it? And that's all this is. It's not some huge debate or like, oh, why isn't insulin free? Blah blah blah. Narcan's free. People are dying every day from drug overdose and drug use, and yeah, the emergency responders, it's overwhelming for them. So that's why we, people as a community, we can carry it. Users themselves carry Narcan. If you're gonna get high with somebody. Carry Narcan. Have a testing kit. If you're gonna use, at least be smart about it. If you're a family member or a friend and you know that a friend of yours uses, carry Narcan. Because on the off chance that they overdose and you happen to be there, it's not a what if situation. If I had Narcan when my cousin died, I could have saved him. And this was in 2012, so this was before Narcan was readily available. Narcan hasn't been readily available in like the past 5 years probably. So if I would have had that then, oh my God, I would have saved his life. He would never have died. He'd be here today, or at least I would like to think so. But, you can't live on what ifs. But that's just the kind of stuff I'm saying. You don't have to think that. If you know anybody who is struggling, carry Narcan or talk to them about whatever it is, or just listen, man. All I'm saying is that instead of judging, instead of pushing people out or making this stigma more than it already is, let's try to help. Let's try to fix. I'm not saying go give people money and enable or none of that, but maybe just listen to their side of the story. And if you can't, that's okay too. Because I'm not sitting here saying that you can't have your opinion, because you can have your opinion. But we can also have ours. And that's really what it is about, is that, and I'm willing to hear from anybody. I would love to hear from people who hate people like me. I would love to hear people from all walks of life, in recovery or out of recovery. Someone who has been harmed by an addict, parents of addicts, friends of addicts, or if someone who's just curious. I'd like to hear from everybody. But this has kind of just been a little rant from me, just about recovery and in general. This is the kind of stuff that we'll do on the podcast. I'll have a guest on normally, and we'll talk about life before, during, and after drugs and or alcohol. If they have children, we'll talk about raising kids in recovery and whether or not they've seen you use, or if you've had to explain to them about those things. I know for me, I have small children, so I haven't even begun to think what I'm going to talk to my kids about when it comes to the drugs and alcohol thing. I should probably get on that. But my kids are 4 and 5, so it's hopefully not too long. Hopefully I got a while before that happens. But so we'll talk to guests about stuff like that. We'll talk about stigma, talk about harm reduction, just life in general, and how we've coped with being an addict in recovery, or how we've coped with just life and just getting life from a different perspective. So normally that's what it'll be about. I'll have a guest on, and that's what we'll talk about. So hopefully we'll get those out to you soon. Also, if you like the kind of stuff we're doing here, if you want to be involved, just hit me up at you can hit me up at recoveringdadpodcast@gmail.com. You hit me up on Facebook and Instagram, Marcus Ashcraft. TikTok, I think, is Recovering Dad Podcasts, or Recovering Dad. I don't know. Anyway, if you like it, please hit the subscribe button. Let everybody know. And thanks. It's been Recovering Dad.